In these calm waters, we spent whole days drifting along beside the riverbanks, only to discover a gentle and open-hearted people with a warm welcome, even though these men of Upper Nubia have always led a very harsh existence. Wherever the Nile flows, there vegetation grows. Livestock prospers, but the desert is only a stone's throw away. Basically, agriculture has always been concentrated on alluvial soil, which, although rich, has long since been overpopulated, requiring both man and beast to be at it all the time. The Noria, invented millennia ago, with its ingenious twin cogwheel system driven by animals, makes it possible to bring up water from a few feet down, making the peasant farmer relatively independent of the water level in the river. Water wheels were already known in the time of the pharaohs, at least under the New Empire, 3,000 years old, and still going. Along this part of the Nile, the vernacular is still sometimes Nubian, although Arabic is making inroads at its expense. A few rare families still know a few words of Coptic, a language which stems from ancient Egyptian. It was in Nubia that sorghum growing was commenced some 11,000 years ago, 10 centuries before barley in the Middle East. And then came millet, wheat, cotton, and introduced much later by the Arabs, sugarcane, indigo, saffron. But who taught the weaver bird to build its elaborate nest? It is instinct, we are told. Agreed. But for there to be a beginning, there had to be a grain of intelligence. As for the Nubian house, it is built of mud and palm trunks. The mud is unfired, an ideal material at these latitudes. It provides very good protection against the heat in the summer, the cold in the winter, and one only has to bend down to pick it up. The inner courtyards are very spacious. There are numerous rooms, and the decoration draws inspiration from the past. In these parts, the crocodile has long since been on the wane. To preserve oil and grain, they again turn to the earth, genuine pottery jars. We are familiar with the ancient history of Egypt, the sites gone through with a fine-tooth comb by the archaeologists. By contrast, the history of the northern Sudan began to fire the imagination only when the great Aswan Dam threatened to swallow up its temples. Most Sudanese monuments remain to be explored. Dongola, the capital of a Christian realm from the 6th to 14th century, was a wealthy town with walled fortifications, broad streets, and fine churches. In Faras, another Christian capital, 120 frescoes were discovered, some from the 8th century. Heretical, light-skinned figures of Byzantine or Coptic tradition. Many an archaeological site is located but a few miles from the Nile, in formerly fertile regions. Nubia, land of mighty contrasts, a wonderfully fertile strip of green, a rend in this immensity of formidable deserts. On the west bank of the Nile, the Libyan desert. On the east bank, the so-called Arabian desert. From Egypt, the Sudan received its gods and its priests. Lying at rest in the sand, there often sleep pharaonic symbols, like the couchant granite rams, little sphinxes of Amun-Re, the sun god. At the foot of the sacred mountain stands the small pyramid of the kingdom of Napata and the Meroe, referred to in the Bible as the land of Cush, a reminder of the kings who gained control of Nubia first of all, and then Egypt. The Egyptian pharaohs of the 25th dynasty were black and came from the Sudan. In Meroe, archaeologists have taken stock of the blocks of stone from 200 pyramids. Egypt has only 80. The temple's bas-reliefs depict the lives of the kings who ruled over the area from the 6th to the 3rd cataract, influencing the Nile region right down to the Mediterranean for over 1,000 years. Apedimek, the lion god with the snake's body, a Sudanese god worshipped along with the Egyptian divinities. It was long thought that Cush was a mythical realm, yet in Karma were found the ruins of an unfired brick citadel, bearing witness to the true existence of Cush. In ancient times, 1/3 of the Egyptian population had its roots in deepest Africa. There were many influences from Asia as well. In the 4th century AD, Meroe was gradually swallowed up by the sand. Meroe saw the first great black civilization. Even now, very little is known about it, although it existed 1,200 years. This bronze statue, coated in gold leaf representing a king of Meroe, leaves many a riddle unsolved even for the god Thoth, the god with a baboon's head, master of knowledge. We are well acquainted with Egyptian hieroglyphics, thanks to translations by Jean-François Champollion. Meroitic writing, however, has still not given up its secrets. Neither Egyptologists nor computers have succeeded in deciphering it, and even less in decoding any meaning. The term Nubia comes from the word nub, gold in ancient Egyptian. For 6,000 years, Sudanese Nubia was Egypt's gold reserve. With the caravans, through trade or military expeditions, the Sudan was linked to the land of the pharaohs by the 40-day route. An awesome route, hardly any oasis or water holes. Provisions for the 1,100-mile journey had to be carried from the start. A few places of rest, however, have existed for centuries, as this archaic well and the grooves on the wood show. Wells up to 200 feet deep, on the edge of the desert. The modern version of the caravan, and the truck follows the same routes for hundreds of miles. These sand tracks are among the worst in Africa, especially when the Khamsin is blowing. Khamsin, 50 in Arabic, a wind of the Sahara which blows for 50 days in the summer. The caravanserais are the same as ever, even though the straw huts are not. The same tea ceremony, still served very strong in Nubia, and claimed to be thirst-quenching when it is heavily sugared and burning hot.